Welcome back. We have a group of beef producers here with me sharing their insights, concerns, and ideas about challenges and opportunities in today's beef industry. You know, recently I read an article from economists up in North Dakota suggesting that between the top 40% cow-calf producers and the bottom 40%, there's over $300 of profit difference. So as we think about the opportunities, there's opportunities for a lot of us to either shave costs or create more value on the backside. And I guess the first question I would ask you, Sasha, as you think about finding ways to improve the cost side of the equation, what would you tell your fellow producers?
Flexibility is the key. You have to be flexible. For example, we row crop. So when corn's good, we harvest it, we sell the corn. But last year we were dry. So the hay suffered and the corn suffered. So instead of selling the corn, we chopped the corn and fed it to the cattle. It just made more sense for us. So you always have to be flexible.
And Craig, you were talking about some things that are happening in Nebraska, a little different models as we think about the cow-calf industry. Share more about that.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of work done on, when the drought came, there's a lot of work done on dry lot cows. And we're going to actually, in our operation this year, because of the high price of grass and transportation, we're going to actually keep some of our older cows home, and we're going to use a modified dry lot system where the calves can go out and we're going to actually turn bulls in with those cows, and then we're going to analyze whether those cows are worth anything as bred or if they need to be harvested, and we'd wean the calves. So we want to keep the cattle in production for one more turn so we can get one more calf crop, but we're going to analyze that and see if that works, because it's all about adapting to change, and when we go through these tough times, a lot of things we implement into our new systems, we learn a lot, okay? All right, challenges always create opportunities. They don't always work, but we're gonna give it a try.
Yep, and you know, you talk about feed, certainly for all of us in the cattle industry, feed comprises about 2/3 of our costs. Dan, let's talk forage for a minute. What's your read on the forage supplies, and what should we look forward to from a hay standpoint in the year ahead?
Yeah, I mean, Craig brought up the drought of 2012, and I know drought's something we always deal with, but 2012 seemed like a game changer for many things. I mean, he's talking about different production models based on the drought. In the West in 2012, many of us were kind of caught flat-footed, and we sure didn't have a plan, so we definitely learned that we need a plan. But you know, the last few months we've seen good moisture in the West. We've even seen some relief out west in California and Oregon and some of the places where we had some extreme drought. So we're in a little different situation than we were here the last couple of years. There's a lot of hay left over in the West, it seems like. There's a lot of feed still in piles, and it's some good snowfall in the mountains so far where I live, so we're actually in better shape than we have been in a long time. But we also always in the back of our mind kind of remember 2012, and we have a little better plan going forward as to what we're going to do to respond to that.
Absolutely. Well, costs are one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is what we get for these cattle, and we've talked a little bit about that. But I want to come back to a comment that Sasha made relative to having a plan, right? I mean, this whole process of, hey, we always sell calves the third week of November because that's the way we always do it. These times are, I think, challenges us all to create a marketing plan that maybe extends back into what kind of cattle we're creating that will provide us an opportunity for some incentives. Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. If we're going to go to all these steps to add extra value and do all these extra things to these cattle, I think it's really important that producers put together a marketing plan, because if you're going to do that work and put this story on those cattle, and Craig ultimately wants that story, so we got to figure out a way to market those cattle to where that story gets conveyed. And if you're marketing the way you always did and the way Grandpa did, then you're doing all that and you're probably not going to receive the value for it. So you got to come up with a plan to be able to get rid of those cattle and to the people that you can transfer the information to and get rewarded for what you're doing.
Yeah, and this doesn't just end at the cow-calf level. It also extends all the way through stocker and feedlot operators. What guidance would you give people relative to creating marketing plans?
Always have the end in mind.
Okay.
Okay. Whether I'm buying cattle or raising cattle, when I'm on my own cow-calf operation, I have the end in mind. I want to know what those cattle are going to weigh, how they're going to grade. Then I'm going to backtrack all the production model back through my cow herd. I do the same thing when I'm buying feeder cattle. I've got a lot of history on a lot of the cattle I buy. I try to buy virtually 60, 70, 80% of the cattle year in, year out, because I have a history on those cattle. I know what they're going to perform, but that's the end point. Then I work back to the producer and I ask him different questions. How was your calving? Did you have a good calving year? have any issues when they were on the mama? How did the weaning go? Stuff like this. I'm backtracking all the way because I'm one of these gate to plate. I look at the whole thing, and you know, everybody handles this beef animal along the way, and the better we do it all the way through, the less surprises we have at the end, the better results we have when we present that beef steak out there to whoever's going to consume it.
Even though we're a fragmented industry, we can gain some value by being aligned, being coordinated, finding some way that we save each other money and make each other money in a integrated, or I should say a coordinated system.
And I think you brought up that point. There's a lot to be captured, and the more we communicate, the less of that money gets away from us, and we as producers capture a lot more of that if we just communicate up and down the chain.
Great advice.